If you have looked into carnivore, Dr. Robert Kiltz may be saying some things that will blow your mind. It certainly did mine in our interview as he went into some areas that I honestly had never even heard of. Enjoy this conversation. I think there's a lot to take away as we just question what we think we know. Dr. Kiltz, I've been looking forward to this conversation for a long time, my friend. Followed your work, and you've put out a lot of really amazing information that really, raises a lot of questions around what we should be eating. And I love the angle that we get from you in that you are a fertility specialist, MD, focusing on fertility. And so if you will, let's go into a little bit about how you got into, even being a doctor and then specializing in fertility, and then how that took you to carnivore.
Well, I'm just a simple guy living in a world of troubles, and I got myself in trouble long ago when I was a kid. I was kicked out of school in a gang, couldn't read, ADHD, OCD, dyslexia. And I believe that most of that was secondary to my diet, but I didn't understand or know that at the time, and no one else did. I had terrible migraines as a child and lots of problems, and I was difficult to control and a street kid. And but thankfully, the good Lord gave me some direction, and He made me good at math and science. And I broke a leg when I was 19, when I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was a potter and a painter. I worked, but I didn't know the direction I wanted to go. I was in Los Angeles City College for a couple of years, and I met a doctor after I broke my leg that inspired me to be a doctor. And although I was kind of challenged when I read what it took to do that, and yet I said, but I'm a hardworking, dedicated guy that if you give me something hard, that means I'm going in the right direction. And even though it might take me a little bit more to get there, I managed to get there, and I hope I excel at it. But in medical school and residency, I found myself attracted to surgery, women's health care. I went into OBGYN. I actually started a little internal medicine, but I realized that it was just a bunch of chronic diseases that I wasn't going to keep on writing prescription. I like to get in under the hood and see if I can fix it. And that's why I became a surgeon. And on the fertility side, I just kind of really was attracted to the surgical side, and ultimately reproduction is the most important thing in life. And I was seeing a lot of trouble in reproduction, but I was interested in trying to figure out what makes it tick and what's wrong with it and how to fix it. I actually focused a lot on standard medicine. I began to incorporate mindfulness and prayer and meditation and sort of some non-traditional things in medicine. And about 20 plus years ago, I fell in kind of the maybe 25 Atkins world, and then started to learn about paleo and then keto. And about 15 years ago, I fell into carnivore personally. I was already talking about paleo and keto for health and wellness and for fertility, but it really helped me understand the cause of all disease and fertility problems specifically when I realized that we're eating a high plant-based, which ultimately means a high sugar-based diet, which is probably the leading cause of all of our problems. And reproduction problems are just another disease: hypertension, diabetes, cancer, stroke, infertility, dementia, depression, anxiety, schizophrenia. They're all caused by the same plant-based, low animal fat diet and eating 3 to 6 grazing meals a day. Because as it turns out, we're likely carnivores and meant to eat meat and eat less frequently. And that is probably the healthiest thing you could eat but it's kind of radical, and trying to understand why might take a couple of more minutes to explain.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely radical from the narrative that we've all, grown up with. So in your way of viewing this, is the infertility just simply a mitochondrial dysfunction like what appears to be most chronic diseases?
Well, I think we're blaming mitochondria as a single entity cause, but I think it's more generalized in the organ systems that are damaged. And when I say organ systems, let's talk about the cell. The cell has a mitochondria, but it also has the nucleus. It has the ribosomes, the endoplasmic reticulum, the Golgi apparatus, which are critical for protein synthesis. But there's also some things that happen, something called glycosylation. We've all heard of glycation. Glycation is the abnormal binding of sugars, which cause oxidative damage and rusting to the entire body. Just think of diabetes. Diabetes, pre-diabetics, type 1 and type 2 diabetics, lose their eyes, their organs, their limbs, their lives earlier and earlier. They have a higher risk of heart disease and cancer and stroke, dementia, depression. And the question is, well, what's causing that? Is it just the mitochondria? See, people think the energy is the problem, but it's more complicated than that, because plant sugars will basically coat every cell of your body, every molecule of your body. They're foreign to our body. They elicit an allergic reaction no matter where it is in the body, whether it's in the ovaries, the testicles, the brain, the heart, the liver, the kidney. All of these organ systems are damaged. Now, whether it's the mitochondria or the nuclear function or the endoplasmic reticulum and protein synthesis function, or it's some other membrane problems, even mitochondrial membrane problems, when it comes to making adenosine triphosphate, which is the ultimate energy to propel all the functions of the body. So I don't think it's just mitochondrial damage. I think it's systemic damage to many organs and or cellular organelles that are responsible for the normal function of the human body.
I'm glad you said it that way, because it's very easy to get into that reductionist mindset and just try to pinpoint and find something. And I'm definitely guilty of that. But Dr. Kiltz, as I go through the journey of attempting to understand this complexities, it's even more complex the more you get into it. But when you have the influence of, say, Laszlo Boros, I talked to Jack Cruz or Morley Robbins or Anthony Chafee. There's so many that have these different components, and I don't know that anybody's necessarily wrong, right? It's just so complex that these different angles that it comes through. So before we get too deep, I want to get kind of back to the basics just a little bit, because I think we can go in any direction from this
Right.
point. What do you feel is maybe the basics of implementation that you've seen with, say, patients or yourself, just to kind of give us that foundation before we go into maybe the deeper mechanisms?
Implementation of a healthy lifestyle, a healthy eating lifestyle, and understanding what healthy even means, because healthy is essentially a marketing term. You know it if you live it, but often we look at it and we think, oh, that's healthy, but you're not looking under the hood. You have no idea what's going on and circulating through that mighty Ferrari inside there. And so ultimately, looking healthy isn't just, I had a picture of Jack LaLanne. Now, the guy lived, I think, to 100, right? And he that was a healthy guy. Now, he ate mostly plants, by the way. So I don't know the answer ultimately. What is the ultimate healthy way of living? But I have kind of a few things. Number one, have faith in God, in all of us in life, right? You got to think in the positive, not in the negative, right? So if things come at you that you think are negative, you need to be able to convert those things to the pieces of the puzzle to make your life better every day. All right. So faith first. Okay. So, fasting. So I don't care what you eat. If you just spend more time not eating, that's better. We're not grazing animals. We don't have a ruminating gut. We're like lions. We eat a lot of fatty meat. That's the very best. We digest it. We rest so it can digest properly. And then we can extract the minerals and vitamins from the food we eat and store it in our adipose tissue, because adipose tissue is actually the building block of your body and the fuel of the mitochondria. Glucose is not the fuel of the body. It's wrong. And move, do something, be creative, right? You know, we've been trained to sort of sit around and do nothing, watch TV, right? Is there a TV anymore? Devices. But you got to watch Logan and Kilts, though. You got to watch that stuff. But again, the idea is that we're supposed to do things and go to work every day, because without work, you don't create anything. So
Absolutely.
have faith in God, eat less frequently, more fasting. Fatty meat's the very best way, in my opinion. And get moving and go do something. That's the basics of a healthy life.
I think that's beautiful, my friend. So, well, let's go into your way that you've really adopted and been a proponent of, with a fat first approach. So what you have proposed is animal based. It's it's more of like the lion diet type.
Right.
What should a daily diet look like?
Well, I do about a fistful of food a day, and the majority of that fistful of food is a fatty ribeye steak with the fat on it. It's mostly black and blue raw with some char on the outside, because when you cook the meat, you may actually damage the amino acids and the other minerals and vitamins that are critical for our health and wellness. And so when you eat fat, adipose tissue, it goes to the lymphatics. It's easily digested in our body. It does not go to the liver. Fat, when you eat it, does not require insulin. It's actually distributed throughout your body, because fat is the most important part of your body, because it's not only your short and long-term energy stores, it contains all the minerals, the vitamins, and the amino acids and simple sugars and fatty acids your body requires. Okay? Plus, when you eat fat, it suppresses the microbes in the gut, which are damaging to our gut. Bacteria, yeast, and viruses, especially the first two, they ferment the sugars. They make heat, gas, alcohol, and aldehydes. They proliferate. They damage the layers of the bowel called the glycocalyx. So they make a leaky gut and they invade your body. So when you eat meat, you get the fat and you get the protein. The protein breaks down to amino acids, correct?
Correct.
Now, what happens when you eat amino acids or protein? Where does it go? It goes to the liver via insulin. It's mostly converted to fat. The amino acids and the sugars are part of the building blocks that need to be deposited in the adipose tissue, because adipose tissue is not a lifeless substance. Obesity causes no disease, by the way. Being obese is a sign that you likely overate plants and underate fatty meat, in my opinion. So I generally do a fistful of food a day. It's mostly fatty meat. I sometimes eat bacon, eggs, butter, beef, and I occasionally have Kiltz's ice cream, and I always use salt, which is critical for our nutrition, in my opinion.
It just seems so simple. So I want to get the biggest issue that I have run into when I recommend fat. And that is a lot of, especially health-minded or medical professionals will say that the fat contains a lot of toxins. The fat contains toxins. So therefore, you're getting the toxins when you eat them. So what do you say to that?
Heroin, cocaine, marijuana, cyanide, nicotine, caffeine come from plants. There are no toxins in fat. Fat is not the storage for toxins. What toxins do you eat? Do you get stored in fat? Can you name it? Alcohol?
The
Heroin?
The heavy metals are where the biggest pushback that I have seen. And now that will translate into what I wanted to ask you about next, and that was going to be liver. But when Dr. Boros is one of my favorite people on the face of the earth, and I probably bother him way too much, but he is a huge proponent of eat fatty meat, right? Based off of the deuterium conversation, because it's a low deuterium food. So when I say that based off the deuterium, and I get the pushback of, well, the fat is where the toxins are stored, we can go into the whole what the animal ate is extremely important, right? And that's where I go into being a proponent of regenerative agriculture and then the grass-fed, grass-finished. But I really wanted your take on when somebody says, Dr. Kiltz, I don't want to eat that ribeye because the fat contains toxins.
Well, name what toxin. You can't. It's kind of like naming the liver. So what's the liver's primary job?
To break down or detox whatever is in there that we don't need in.
Okay, so here's the liver's primary job. It's to make fat. So here's how you know it. What's the leading disease of the liver? It's fatty liver disease, right?
Fatty liver.
But the liver's job is to make fat out of amino acids and simple sugars. What do people eat more than anything? Lean meat and plants, which break down to what? Amino acids and sugars. Both of those things go to the hepatic portal system and go to the liver. Both of them require insulin. See, insulin's job is to make fat in the liver. Insulin's job is not to put sugar in your cells. That is incorrect. And the simple answer is type 1 diabetics have no insulin. They're skinny, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
Because they can't make fat. Type 2 diabetics are overweight. They make a lot of fat. Why do they make a lot of fat? Because in general, a type 2 diabetic is a carbaholic. They eat a ton of plants and they eat very little fat, by the way. Most people do not eat fat. The American diet is very depleted in fat. They eat a lot of lean meat, they eat a lot of plants, but they don't eat fat. A fat is a stick of butter a day. Do you know any people that eat a stick of butter a day?
Not that haven't dove into this area.
Right on. Okay.
No.
So now if you're a liver failure patient, cirrhotic, you're skinny. You have no fat. yet you have high insulin and high glucose levels in your body. Well, gee, I thought that insulin puts sugar into your cells. Well, I guess that means it's going to put it in your fat cells and muscle cells, and you must make fat in your fat cells. You don't make fat in your fat cells. You store fat in your fat cells that must be made in the liver. This is a huge change in most people's understanding and belief of the system. Remember, we're still leaning on Krebs and the guys of the science who did the science 100 years ago. Remember, sugar was the big thing they all believed in as the energy for the body. So if you believe that to be true, your science is going to prove your theory, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Because most people don't wonder how it works and go out searching. They have a belief and a theory, and they go out to prove it, because that's how they make their money.
Yep.
Now, again, it's really hard to believe, but fatty adipose tissue in a bear that hibernates for 6 months is the only thing they lose when they hibernate and they gestate and they create a baby bear. They lose no muscle mass, no bone mass. They neither eaten, drinking, pissed, or pooped for 6 months. How come? Because adipose tissue is actually the most important tissue on your body. Not your muscles, not your bones, your fat. But we've maligned adipose tissue. But next time you see an anorexic or a bulimic or a cachectic patient that have no fat on their body, how many people with no fat do you look at and say, wow, they're really healthy?
Yeah.
None. So toxins that you eat will kill you or damage you. They're not preferentially stored in fat. And remember, when people say adipose tissue is highly inflamed, right? And that's the cause of insulin resistance. Nope. Liver damage is the cause of insulin resistance. And your fat cells are just as inflamed as every other organ system of your body, because what's the leading cause of inflammation?
What?
Plants.
Plants.
It's really simple. Plants are the most toxic thing you could consume.
Let's circle back real quick when we're talking about Krebs, and then we can get into Veach and Otto Warburg and understanding the energy production side of it. When we are discussing that, let's go into cancer. If cancer is a metabolic disease, okay? If cancer is a metabolic disease, Otto Warburg's correct. Let's say Dr. Barros is correct. How does the carnivore diet affect cancer, and what is cancer in your estimation?
Okay. Cancer is an inflammatory disorder, not strictly a metabolic disorder. When you say metabolism, what do you mean?
I guess it's going to be the production of ATP and metabolic water.
Okay. So when a mitochondria die, the cell dies. Except some cells don't die, they survive. What is that cell called?
Senescent.
Cancer cell. Okay, so cells without mitochondria, red cells don't have mitochondria because they have a finite lifespan. Our cells hoping to live longer. The mitochondria die secondary to some inflammatory process that damages some function of the mitochondria or other parts of the cell that don't allow it to survive in that environment. Now, Otto Warburg we believe he's right, that the mitochondrial damage stops it from making ATP in the mitochondria, but you make a little bit of ATP in the cytoplasm through glucose to pyruvate to lactate. Okay? So now, but what is the energy for the mitochondrial ATP production? Is it glucose or something else?
See, and this is where my mind has just been spinning based off, if you take Dr. Boros, if it's the electron transport chain, it's the energy is coming from a combination of the hydrogen, right? And then light, right? We've got light and hydrogen come in there, and we have energy coming from even outside of food.
Let's try. Okay, Occam's razor.
Okay.
Occam's razor. Occam's razor says the simple answer is the one. Can you live without eating for a month if you're fat enough?
Yes.
What are you using for energy?
You're fat.
You're fat.
The fat.
Okay.
The fat breaking down.
So now I feed you today. You eat food. What's your energy?
The same thing.
Fat? It's always fat.
Yeah.
Is it glucose?
Yes.
I don't believe it is.
What you ate. You don't believe it is. Okay.
No way.
All right.
No way. Okay. So you swim underwater and you don't come up for an hour. Can you breathe water?
No.
No. You'll die. You're above water. You breathe air, right? So why would sugar be your energy when you got plenty of fat everywhere?
Okay.
Can you explain it?
No, I have no reason for that.
If glucose, so glucose that we eat comes from a plant, sugar from a plant. Plant sugars are highly antigenic, which means when we eat plants and insects and other sugar forms, they're highly antigenic. They cause inflammation. Okay? So now, if you don't eat for 5 days, is your sugar going to keep on spiking or is it going to stay down?
Stay down.
Right. So, but what's sugar for? That's the question. If sugar's not your energy, what's its function? Do we know that answer?
I have a little hypothesis. It is to stimulate insulin to create fat.
It is not. It is for glycosylation. Glycosylation. So there's something called the glycobiome. It's the sugar layer that lines every cell of your body. It's the barcode of your body. Okay? So now the barcode says friend or foe, come in or stay out. It says you're the right molecule, you're the wrong molecule. So there are hundreds of sugars in nature. In the human body, there are about 9 primary sugars. They are critical to add to a protein, glycosylation. You add a sugar to a protein, it gives the protein the proper shape, charge, pH, and whether it dissolves in water or not. Almost all proteins are post-translationally modified by some reaction in our body. About 70% of our proteins are glycosylated. Now, you've never heard of glycosylation, have you?
No.
You've heard of glycation. Hemoglobin A1C is a glycated hemoglobin. Sugar binds to the hemoglobin on the red blood cell, and it damages it to a point where it rises. We define you as diabetic. Okay? So, but when it goes down, right, our body functions better. we have less inflammation. So my sister Marianne died of diabetes at 52. She suffered since age 4. Beautiful, amazing woman. I'm grateful for everything of her life, by the way, because she's taught me something that you and I have never heard of: glycosylation. Glycosylation is more important than anything you know, but you've never heard of it. Sugar's job is to be added to a protein or a lipid or another sugar to create the proper functionality of that protein or that other cellular product. And remember, well, you may not know this, that the DNA directs the RNA, which all have sugar molecules on them. Do you know this?
Mm-hmm.
Deoxyribonucleic acid, ribonucleic acids are sugars. Where do you think those sugars come from? They come from glucose. Your body converts all these things into amazing products. Your skin is covered with a sugar. Okay? Your bowel is covered by a glycocalyx, a sugar layer. Imagine the plants on the earth. Without them, what would happen to the soil and the land? It would erode, correct? Mm-hmm. Well, without the sugars lining the cells of your body, you would break down and erode, just like people who have things like COPD, who have cancers, who have irritable bowel, and have leaky gut.
So is this where glycolysis will come in the conversion of proteins into the sugars that we need? No?
Okay. So partially, okay? So imagine every conversation, every thought, every motion of a muscle, every function of your body requires a hugely fast glycosylation pathway at the speed of light. Okay?
Okay.
How much sugar do you need for that?
A lot.
Okay. What if sugar was not your direct mitochondrial energy source? Acetyl-CoA is from fatty acids, because that's why skinny people drop dead fast, because they have no fat. Wow. So if you look at bulimics, cachectics, and anorexics, they die fast because they cannot provide enough fat for acetyl-CoA in order to make ATP. But that's not the primary dysfunction of our body. It's inflammation from the plant foreign sugars, the plant antigens, lectins, oxalates, phytates, the plant chemicals, and the fermentation of plants in the gut, which basically send the microbes everywhere inside you and take you down. So what if most of what we think is wrong? That's my question. That's all.
I talk to a lot of extremely intelligent people that know way more than I probably ever will. And this is the first time that I have heard a lot of what you're saying. And yet it still makes sense. And so I've had my mind blown numerous times. And this is another one.
Well, again, my ideas are not new, but I dig into things that mostly we in the keto carnivore world do not touch. Listen, Everyone wants to blame it on like the mitochondria. Okay. Right. So if your mitochondria are dead, you would die, right?
Yeah.
You'd die. Okay. Yes. So what if the things about the human body that we don't understand because we don't study it?
I can't argue with that.
And so here was the issue. When my best friend Dave Kilmer died of cancer about 15 years ago, the same time my sister died approximately, he was a healthy doctor, dies of cancer. Okay. I was like, okay. And then I don't know if you know Sarah Hallberg from Virta Health. Peter Attia and a few other people started Virta Health. Volek and Finney, I think, I may have that wrong, which was mostly pushing a ketovore diet, which they really did great on reducing diabetes. Sarah Holberg dies of brain cancer. Healthy, wonderful, amazing woman. But when my friend Dave died, Sarah died, my sister died, I'm always asking the question, well, why did they die? They died of inflammation. Inflammation from what we call a healthy diet. Inflammation is primarily caused by plant sugars, plant chemicals, plant antigens, lectins, oxalates, phytates, and then the fermentation of plants. So rather than it just being glucose is the problem, it's more complicated than that because there are hundreds of plant sugars. And you probably never heard of fucose, mannose, N-acetylglucosamine, N-acetylgalactosamine, xylose. There are many sugars that are critical for the function of your human body.
So, like D-ribose has been something that has been promoted in biohacking and even bodybuilding over decades. And so as you're going through that comes into mind and trying to process that, you've completely just blown my mind, just to be honest with you.
Well, look, I'm just an ordinary guy that just questions almost everything. And so, look, you can eat a lot of different foods. You could be a vegan, vegetarian, Mediterranean, and live a long time, by the way. Carnivore isn't the solution that says you're going to live forever and you're not going to have any diseases. We don't know that answer, all right? But the human body is just amazing. We're an omnivore. You can eat meat and you can eat plants, animals and plants. But you can't eat only plants and be a healthy human being. You cannot do that, right?
Right.
It's an unusual thing. But you can eat only animals and be very healthy. But you must eat the fat because if you eat only the meat protein, there's something called protein poisoning. Proteins convert to amino acids to become sugars in the liver. They glycate and they ferment in the gut. Most people don't know this. See, most amino acids have a sugar attached to it.
So as you've gone through this, and I'm attempting to process and keep up, I'm thinking about what can we do to apply, right? What can I do to incorporate things that are for my son who had stage 4 cancer, right? Like, what do I do to make sure that we are on the right page? Because honestly, that's my only agenda. I have no agenda for anything other than how do I take care of my family. So knowing that history and trying to put together the manner at which I, take care of him, what kind of tips do you have?
Well, the key is fat. You must eat the fat. Fat is adipose tissue. Personally, I think beef fat, lamb fat, pork fat. I'm not a fish fat fan, and there's no such thing as chicken fat or turkey fat. It's hard to get. Okay? I mean, it's possible, but hard to get. But you see, I'm in the bacon, eggs, butter, beef, and salt. That's like, to me, the healthiest diet you could eat. Okay? In general, when you eat like that, you eat less frequently because you feel satiated fast. And so if you choose to eat plants, you want to make sure you cook them well to simplify the sugars, kill the microbes, eliminate the fiber, get rid of it, it's deadly for us, and disable the toxins. All right? Now, in general, humans have figured out which are the least toxic foods. And in general, you want to soak them. You want to cook them. You want to prepare them in a way that detoxifies them. Corn, many tubers, beans, lentils. These have to be detoxified before you eat them. Now, I'm not giving you that advice. There are plenty of people that help you on that. I just stay away from them mostly because if I've got to detoxify something and or have to rely on the fact that someone may have detoxified them, but maybe the long-term use of small amounts of toxins causes small amounts of inflammation over time that finally leads to something more significant like cancer or a stroke or dementia or Alzheimer's, something like that. So by cooking the plants and adding the fat, so your diet should have about 50% of your grams or weight or volume in adipose tissue, to me.
Yeah, that's a considerable amount. So
it is. Now, the problem is you may not, like if you get a fatty ribeye steak, it's marbled really well. It may be about that much, but you're not seeing it quite as readily. But when you cook meat, like you cook a burger and all the fat melts away, you're not getting fatty meat. You want to eat it more raw and rare. And, you may add some butter. To me, because when you eat fat, it kills the microbes in your gut. Now, have you ever heard the microbiome is really good for you?
Absolutely.
So would you put bacteria, yeast, and a virus in an open wound?
No.
Would you purposely spread it on a piece of bread and say, eat it, here's some bacteria for you?
No.
Why would you take a pill with it? Pre and probiotics, in my opinion, are part of the cause of disease because they love sugar. They set up a nest, a village, and then they work their way to invade the soil, which is invading the epithelial cells. They get into the lymphatics, into the blood vessels. They go to the liver. Then they go to every cell of your body. That's the main way they get in. They make an abscess, appendicitis, colitis. I mean, just name the disease of the bacteria, yeast, and viruses that are killing us because we feed them a high plant protein, low fat diet. And then we eat them thinking they're good for us. When you feed a cow fat, if I feed a cow lots of fat, the cow dies because it kills the microbes in the rumen. Well, in a cow, they have a ruminating gut. They eat grass and fiber that requires the microbes to simplify them to simple sugars in order for them to be absorbed, taken to the liver via insulin converted to fat. And so, it's how do you feed your children an animal-based fatty meat and eat less frequently because we're hunters. Hunters don't carry a bucket of food, a lunch bag, right? They hunt.
Right.
And they don't eat until they kill. Well, farmers, berry pickers may be eating all day. I don't know. But in general, think about it. Farming is a peasant task. Hunting is the master's task. We're ancient hunters that have been deflated and made to believe that grass and grains is good for us.
I think that's fair. That's obviously when the health of the humans started declining was after the agricultural revolution. So that's hard to debate on that one.
And you don't need an MD degree to figure this one out. This is the problem. This is why I love social media, because they're influencers that don't have a degree. Gee, we doctors need to listen to people without degrees, because it's evident, obvious that our degree is killing people, in my opinion. Sorry, doctors.
Sorry, doctor. Sorry. Well, thank you. Thank you for being open and saying things that go counter to the mainstream. And there's going to be a lot of pushback on even this conversation, right? But I am just actively trying to find things that apply, make sense, and we get the results based off of whatever input that is. And so, thank you for taking this deep dive. What is next for you? Where can we send people to find out more about the Kiltz way and everything you're doing?
Logan, God bless you. Thank you. drkiltz.com is the best place. I'm on all the social media stuff because I love the connection with other human beings around the universe that are working to be human beings. And you know, I'm inspired by people like yourself and many people out there. They've become my friends. You know, this is the amazing part of this connection. Keto, carnivore, and look at, I'm not debating anyone. I'm not arguing. I'm only sharing my story. You believe me or not, it doesn't matter. That's the beauty of all of this. We can share a story, and you know, if you don't believe me, I'm okay with it. I think that this is the most amazing ideas, and something's not working, and we got to change
Obviously.
it. And we're changing it one human being at a time by sharing on social media more so than I've ever been able to do practicing medicine.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
I
cool,
agree.
man.
Well, thank you for sharing the adversity that you faced with your family and friends. Because honestly, without Lander having cancer, we wouldn't be having this conversation. And so, trying to make the good out of hard times is something that I truly admire.
Well, it's all God's work, all of it. I mean, God didn't say, you know, it's supposed to be this way. It's supposed to be all the ways it is. So he gives us the pieces of the puzzle in order to play the game of life. And, you know, we're learning and growing every day. And so, you know, I never say, woe is me. I go, whoa, because God's got this. You have to have faith in God first, all of us. And it's within each of us. That's the amazing part of the story that I love more than anything.
Amen. Thank you.
Amen to you. God bless you.
Thank you for joining us on Sowing Prosperity. Be sure to follow along across the social media platforms, including YouTube, and be sure to go to sowingprosperity.com.